Hey folks, Matt Kloskowski here, and I wanted to go over a very popular landscape photography technique. It's actually been out there. It's been out there for a long time. It's a soft kind of a glow type of an effect. The official name, if you look back at the roots of where a lot of people got it from, is called the Orton effect. O-R-T-O-N from, it was created by Michael Orton in the 1980s it's a film photography technique, but there's ways that we can translate this over to digital. Again, if you do any searches around some popular photo sites, 500px is one of them. It's almost like the signature 500px.com website look is this type of a glow. You'll see it. I want to show you how to create it, but more than that, rather than copy everybody else, I want to show you where you can create it, but also where you can maybe do things on your own and maybe make it look a little bit different. Okay. So first things first is you would do some basic develop changes to your photo here. And I don't do a lot. All right. This is an effect that's already going to do a lot to your photos when it comes to contrast and color. So I don't do a lot when it comes to basic overall settings and develop, maybe pull back on highlights. If there's any shadows that are a little bit too dark, you can open that up. If there's a specific color cast, maybe do that, and all your other technical noise reduction and lens corrections and all that stuff. But let's get into the good stuff for this one. There is, of course, if you go up to show more, there's a glow option right up here. We're going to skip that. We're going to do all of our finishing touches and our stylistic effects over here in ON1 effects. So we're going to click on that and you're going to add a filter. It's called glow. It's the same thing. It's the same filter. It wasn't developed. It's not going to be any better, worse, different, indifferent. Same thing. So we're going to do two ways to do this. I'll show you the default way, which is go and add a glow. And you've got some presets over here. I usually just go with either normal or darker. Okay, and when you add this effect, you're going to see it's a darkening effect. And generally, that's where you're going to see it on your landscape photos, is to darken and give some mood and contrast to the photo. So let's go ahead and click on darker. So what you should notice is that things got darker and contrastier, but also there's just a softness, a glow, almost sometimes a dreamy look it's described as to the photo here. And you can control that. You can control that with the amount and the halo. You can also control, the different blend modes. Soft light's going to be a little bit less punchy than overlay is going to be. So that's something to keep in mind, but you can definitely come down here and change that. The amount, I think of the amount almost as the amount of contrast and saturation. The higher that goes, the contrastier and more saturated everything's going to get. And then halo, I think of halo almost as the glow effect. It's going to add a halo. Colors are going to bleed together. Edges are going to bleed together. It'll still look like a sharp photo, but there's just going to be an overall softness to it. It's it's a weird thing to describe. It's got a soft feeling, but yet details as you look at the ground and everything are still there. So there is no magic place for this setting. Usually, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to crank it up. I'm going to crank it up somewhere between 40 and 50 if I'm going to add this. I want it to be fairly noticeable inside the photo. Okay. So we go in there, we can add our glow. That is before, that is after. If I were to do something like this, one thing I would do while I was over in develop is I probably would have darkened this road a little bit. Just as an overall change, grab my brush and just come down here and darken that road. Just to me, it got a little bit too bright. That might be a little too dark, but I can always pull back. And then jump back over here to effects. And of course, you've got your glow setting. Let's go ahead and delete that. That is super fast, easy method number one. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about the roots, and again, his name is Michael Orton. I'm not gonna go into exactly what it was, and I'll let you Google search it, and you can find and read all you want about it if you want to go that direction. What I can tell you is that the basis behind it was two photos. All right, two photos, and this was back in the film days. Two photos. First version of the photo, normal baseline photo. Second version was overexposed and out of focus. Okay, and when they sandwiched those together, you got a brighter, glowier type of an effect. So let's manually create this over in effects. We'll go to overall settings. I'm going to get rid of my glow. And we're going to add a filter here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make a brighter version. So we click on Tone Enhancer, crank up the exposure. All right, usually about +1. Again, we're going to be able to come back here and change it though. So I wouldn't stress too much over how much you increase it. Give you +1 as a good guideline. And then we're going to go add another filter, and we're going to add a blur filter. And we're going to do Gaussian, to type Gaussian blur here. And it's impossible to give you a number. What I can tell you is we don't want the photo to be unrecognizable. We don't want it to be so low that now it just looks slightly soft, but you want a good amount of softness, but you can still recognize what's in the photo. All right. This is going to vary. That's why I can't give you a formula. Everybody's camera is different. Some people have a 20 megapixel camera. Some people have 26. Some people have 40. Some people got 50. All right. I can tell you for this photo here is it's a raw file out of a Sony A7R2, 42 megapixel file. Half of that is usually going to be a pretty good number over here. Okay. All right. Now we got our blur. Now we need to start putting these things together. Well, part of the effect is again a contrasty type look. And we need to fade this blur. We need to get this blur to somehow mix with the photo. So the first thing we'll do is go back to the tone enhancer. We're going to click on the little gear icon inside of there. And we're going to change the blend mode to either overlay or soft light. Some people even use multiply. Multiply gets super dark, but give it a try. There's no rule for this one. So overlay or soft light. Overlay is just a little bit of a punchier version than soft light is. And then you're going to do the same thing on the blur layer. Click on the gear, go over here to your blend mode, change that again to overlay or soft light. Okay. Now you're going to notice things get way, way crazy here pretty fast. And that's where all of your other settings come in. So there's the quick and easy way with the glow filter to do it that, you get a couple of sliders, but here you can change everything. Okay, so we can go over here, we can pull down the opacity of the blur layer. We're going to leave that up for now, but we're definitely going to pull down the opacity of the tone enhancer layer. Okay, now you're going to start to see that softness become a little bit more, the softness and that glow is going to take more of a front stage than the contrasty look that we just added with the tone enhancer. So once you pull that back, I usually pull it back to 0 and then gradually bring it up to where I want. It's going to land somewhere between 20 and 40. And then we go back over here to our blur layer. We can always reduce the opacity of that. I actually don't reduce the opacity too much. I'll usually just go over here and experiment with the blur. Okay, and you get a different look. You get a little bit more edge detail at a lower blur. You get a little bit less edge detail and a little bit more dreamy at a higher blur. All right, so photos with lots of details work great. Photos with a lot of depth, mountains in the background. It's a funny thing because I love atmospheric perspective, which is when you have depth and trees and forests and then mountains in the background and things get lighter and faded as things get to the back. People always say, why don't you use dehaze on that to get rid of it and make it all contrasty and a little bit get rid of the haze. To me, I want that. Like, I can't bottle that up. I love atmospheric perspective, so I don't want to get rid of it. And this effect will really look great on some of those photos that have those different layers in them. Okay, so we can go in here. We can adjust. Opacity. You can adjust your blur amount depending on the style that you're looking for. And then you've got your tone enhancer down here. You can always tweak shadows. You can adjust. Remember how I said we can change the exposure, so we're not stuck with what we had before. You can definitely come in here and change it, and then always reduce that opacity to where we want. Nothing saying at this point you can't go back to develop, but hopefully if you follow me, you realize I throw all rules out of the window. I don't have any workflow rules. I'll do whatever I want, wherever I want, whenever I want, because it doesn't matter. So come back over here. Maybe you realize I want to boost the shadows a little bit more. Not like I did at first there. Boost those shadows a little bit more. Maybe I want to pull back highlights. Maybe I want to go to local adjustments. Remember how I darkened that road? I think I could probably stand to darken it. Let's go over here. just real quick and dirty. I could probably stand to, I think when I reset the photo, I reset the road too. But I could probably stand to go in there and darken that road a little bit more too. If you hit the backslash key, you will see before, and then backslash key again after. It is definitely a more punchy photo. Hopefully you learned by going into effects and your overall settings inside of here. We can do a lot. You know, we're inside of that little gear icon. We can change our blend mode. We can tell this to apply it to just highlights, just midtones, just shadows, just the reds or the greens or the blues or just a certain color. We can apply it to just vivid colors or neutrals, so that'll tone down a lot of things. And then don't forget you have a mask. You've got a mask over here. You can use your masking brush and you can paint and you can remove the effect on any part of the photo. If you find a certain color is getting, you like the overall look and you find a certain color is getting too overbearing, like maybe the reds in this photo, add another filter, go to your color enhancer. And rather than enhancing the colors, we're going to go to our reds and we're going to pull the red saturation back. You see how we can pull those back. Okay. We can do the same thing. We could go to greens or we could go to yellows and we can pull back on some of those colors inside of there if we find that there's one thing getting too overbearing over another. Okay, so hope this kind of gives you a little bit of food for thought. It is, again, if you search around for landscape photography, again, I see it a lot on 500px.com. In fact, it's almost like the signature style on there. Like all the top photographers on there are doing it. I'm not in any way insinuating you have to go do this to all of your photos, but it's a question I get quite a bit. You know, people will send me a photo and they'll say, how do they get this look? This is how they get that look in some way or another. And hopefully you know the basics of how to do it, but also how to go in there and maybe make it your own and tweak it a little bit so you can have some fun with it. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again real soon.